But before I delve into all of that, I do want to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today, the Turrbal and Yagara people. And I want to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and their elders who may be emerging. And I want to reflect on what an acknowledgement of country means in a time of genocide, in a time when our country is complicit in committing genocide. And I think it was Uncle Wayne Wharton who said, they continued to genocide us blackfellas until we were the compliant few. And that was, I think, in November 2023 when I heard him say that, and it really shocked my entire being and my core. Because in 2017, I visited Palestine. I was one of the lucky people who won a scholarship to study international human rights and international humanitarian applied law within the occupied Palestinian territories. I have to say, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life because it was, I don't know if anyone's ever watched Roots. If you're my age, you know Roots and you know the touching story of someone who goes back to their homeland to experience and witness the suffering of their people. And, you know, it's something that they've always longed for, is to return to this place. And so I went, and I think it was like the third or the 4 days before I went home, 3 or 4 days before I went home, and we were at a checkpoint. And in 2017, I don't know if you all remember, but there were these, knife incidents. And we're at a checkpoint, and there was this boy. And for all the children here, please trigger warning because I'm going to be quite explicit in what I say. But we witnessed this boy who was, there with a steak knife and then suddenly riddled with bullets. He was just riddled and he was just there at this checkpoint. 1 second you're showing everyone your passport, like the soldiers. The next second you're seeing this boy who was shot to death. And it wasn't later, when I got back to Australia, that I learned through the Al-Haq Centre for Human Rights that this boy was 16 years old and that his family's punishment for him having a steak knife was that they cemented their entire house. So they poured concrete into the house. That was Israel's punishment. And the Labour Friends of Palestine asked me to come and talk about my experience in the occupied Palestinian territories at Parliament House one evening. So of course, I'm like, yes, this is going to be the moment that we change Australia's trajectory. And I was working for a law firm and I was representing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, who were institutionally abused. And come on, this is the moment that we effect change. So I went and I started to speak to them. And I was back, I was fresh in Australia. And I don't know if anyone's ever been into a place where you experience life like this, where life is just really high one moment and then really low one moment. It's really intense. And then when you come back to Australia, and Australia is so quiet and slow, and all you hear in your head for about 2 months is this noise. So people are talking to you, and you're having conversations, but all you hear is shh. I think that's like a trauma response or something, but it's what was happening. And I was at this event, and this one MP came to me, and he was like, I am so sorry you witnessed that event. And I don't know, but I looked at him and I said, I'm not here for your condolences. I'm not here for you to tell me that you're sorry. I'm here because I need you to reflect and to think about why a 16-year-old boy has a knife. What makes a 16-year-old boy sacrifice his life in this way? What is it? It's the occupation. I swear I'm not joking. He turned around and walked away. Because the idea of reflecting, the idea of thinking about what was happening is too much. And then I said to them, in 50 years' time, Israel is going to wipe the Palestinians off the map. Israel is going to get rid of us, and then they may start acknowledging us as the traditional custodians of the land on which they meet. I had no idea that the genocide was going to accelerate within 5 years and not 50 years. And people said to me, you know, you're exaggerating, it's not going to happen, you know, they're never going to do this. And I was like, no, like I was watching it happen. Like you watched it happen in real time in the West Bank. And now we can't deny it anymore because we're all watching it happen on our phones. Oh, sorry, I've lost my position. And then I, you know, often stop and wonder, what does this mean? What does this mean for Queensland or for Queenslanders? Did you know that Queensland and Western Australia are the only two states and territories in Australia that have not even had a reparations for the stolen generation? We have never acknowledged or repaired the damage that we've committed. We spent, shame. I spent 9 years working with First Nations people who were in institutional care. And the horror stories that you hear on a personal day-to-day are just so enormous and so egregious that you often wonder how Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people haven't risen up and started their own uprisings in Australia. And so then fast forward to November 2023, and I was at an event. I think we were both at that event. And there was an MP, you know, in the current federal government, who said to us, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, if Australia were to acknowledge the genocide that is happening in Palestine, we will have to acknowledge the genocide that we committed here in Australia. Yeah. He said the quiet part out loud. He said it to us. And he said, what do you expect us to do? What about our own black history? And in my head I was like, does that mean we then ignore every wrongdoing that we see? Yeah.
Who was it?
No, I'm not going to do that. I won't do that. And so then it brings you to now, and the ICJ decision on the 26th of January last year, which was monumental. People did not, I am part of an alumni group with Al-Haq, and we were up all night listening to the decision, and people did not believe what we were hearing, because we had assumed that, so the Al-Haq team had assumed that given the US judge, whose name escapes me, there is no way that the ICJ is going to side with South Africa. And they did. They gave South Africa almost everything that they wanted, but for calling for both sides to stop, because Hamas is not a government. They're not a legitimate government, and therefore they can't. They're not under the jurisdiction of the ICJ. And so they couldn't call for that one final thing. And then that night, on the 26th of January, so that happened, I think, at 1 a.m., 26th January Australia time, and I think it was 6 p.m., Australia decided to halt all UNRWA funding because Israel trumped up charges against 15 UNRWA employees. Yeah. And then you go, okay, so what is Australia's obligations under this decision? Because we're signatories to the ICC and to the ICJ. So we are obligated to abide by international law and international jurisprudence. Now, we don't have to ratify it, which then makes that law, which makes it law in Australia, but we have to, on an international level, abide by it. And we currently have several cases in the ICJ. So there's one against Philip Morris, because Philip Morris, the tobacco company, is suing Australia for plain advertising, or plain packaging, sorry, right? So we have cases there. We acknowledge their jurisdiction over us, and we are parties to several proceedings, which then begs the question, when the International Court of Justice tells countries to not abet Israel's plausible case of genocide, what is the consequence for Australia? Now, on a practical level, there is no consequence. And we see that playing out. We see that with Israel's decision yesterday to vote to say that the international law does not apply to them, and therefore they can halt aid into Gaza. They voted, the Knesset voted on that, and that motion passed. But from a theoretical perspective, and from a rules-based order perspective, the obligations are quite clear. We are obligated to not fund, not provide weapons, and not support, and to sanction Israel for the crimes that they're committing, not just in Gaza, by the way, but in the West Bank as well. Because in May, the decision, May last year, was it May or August? I can't remember. I think the hearings were in May, but the decision was in August last year. It was that the occupation is illegal under international law. Israel's occupation of Gaza and the West Bank is illegal under international law, and Israel must pull its troops out. And rather than doing that, we've seen an acceleration of the settlements. And so we're obligated under international law to sanction the Israeli government for allowing the settlements to continue. And we're not doing that. So there is a law firm in Australia that has referred our Prime Minister, our Foreign Minister, and our Defence Minister to the International Criminal Court for aiding and abetting genocide. And that referral has been accepted, right? Charges haven't been laid, but the referral's been accepted. So they're investigating our Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, and Defence Minister for those crimes. You would think that would make them stop. You would think they'd go, all right, we're going to cancel all our contracts with Farah and Raytheon and Boeing, but they haven't. And it begs the question, why? I actually don't have an answer for that. I don't know.
By America.
Yeah, absolutely. They're funded by America.
But we're owned by America. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if anyone ever listened to an ABC podcast about Gough Whitlam. I can't remember the name of the podcast. Really, really informative. But Gough Whitlam decided to stand up against the US's bombing of Vietnam, Agent Orange, and the use of Agent Orange. And then Henry Kissinger sent our Prime Minister a letter saying, if you dare speak out again, we will invade. And then Gough Whitlam gets deposed. So while you're right, you're probably right, I still cannot understand how Australia can so blatantly disregard international human rights and international humanitarian law in the way that they do. Yeah. Because there is no legal standing for them to do that. It's actually mind-blowing to be watching what is happening, because when this happened in Yugoslavia, we were able to sanction, we were able to protect, we were able to follow international human rights and humanitarian law. When it happened in the Ukraine, we took decisive action. In Rwanda, peacekeepers were brought in, and yes, it was too late. A million,
Tutsis.
The Tutsis, were massacred. But we intervened and we did what we needed to do. So watching what is happening now is actually unprecedented. I hate using that word. It's such an overused word, but it is. We're living in unprecedented times, and times that we haven't seen. And so I don't know what the answer is, but I know what we can do. And there are 100, maybe 120 people here. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but no, there's about 100 people. If every one of you was able to recruit a friend and write a letter to our Foreign Minister, write a letter to our Defence Minister, that's 200 letters. If you can recruit 3 people, if you can get people to protests. The other day we were at a rally and we held flags over the bridge. What was the name of the bridge? the Victoria Bridge. And the amount of beeps and applause and people waving at us was amazing. So we have the support from the people. What we need is for the people's voice to be so loud that our government can't ignore it anymore. And I think, the South African apartheid was ignored for 200 years. This is 78 years this year. Hopefully we don't have to survive and live to see much more of this, because I don't know how many more of you can watch a mother wail for her children. I don't know I can do that. I don't know how many more text messages I can receive from my dad about our cousins or our family. But what I think is we need to get louder, and we need to get so loud that we're not ignored anymore. I don't live in the seat of Moreton, but if you do, vote 1 Rouba. Also, we've got Michelle from Australia's Voice with the Red Lines package. Just write to your MPs and support the package. Do things that you can do on an everyday level. I know it's not much, and I know it doesn't feel like much, but it's the best that we can do right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you guys for coming. Your support today means a lot. It will help a lot of kids and people, adults that lost their limbs. So please do purchase something if you can. If you can't purchase today, tomorrow, bring some people tomorrow. There's Sunday. Abla, where are you? Did she leave?
No, she's still there.
Abla is from Gaza, and she will be doing a Tatri's workshop on Sunday. So if you cannot attend her workshop because it's full, she is doing other workshops. So there are series of the workshop coming up. So please do see Abla. Give her your number if you want to be added to the waiting list. She would love to teach you some Tatriz, which is the traditional Palestinian or Levant area kind of embroidery, and it means a lot. It's a resistance in itself for it to survive that long. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for supporting today, and hopefully Katrin will see some of you tomorrow and on Sunday. Thank you.